I'm super excited to talk to you guys about the improvements that we've made to the advanced patient search. So, if we go into reporting and you select here advanced patient search, in the past we had the ability to create queries of patients based on certain criteria here off to the left. So, what we've done in order to improve this feature and make it more functional for you, we've added a couple more criteria here. I'm just going to go through a couple of them. I want to keep these videos as short as possible, but one, for example, is now you can search based on when a tag was applied. So not just that a tag was applied, but within a certain date range. Another couple of improvements that were made looking at visit type. This is now a multi-select. So if you wanted to select a couple of different visit types, we can also now look at not just appointment type, but appointment subtype. Let's look at insurance. Now we've added the ability to look at people that have no payers attached to them. We have the ability to look at people that have coverage with no expiration date or looking at the range of coverage. So those are just a couple of them. There's several more additional filters that you can use to create these queries of patients. So once we have our filter set, we're going to hit search patients. It's going to pull up a list of patients. So the second limitation that this feature had originally was the amount of data that it put here for output for you was restricted. It was very static. You had name, email, phone number. I'm not sure if these are exactly all the ones that you had at one point, but we now have flexibility where if you click this little icon off to the right, this is what we call a field chooser. So for a certain query, let's say, for example, you wanted to do a direct mail campaign based on a certain inventory item that a patient purchased. So let's say a person purchased a certain supplement and you want to do a promotion, you wanted to actually do it as a direct mail. Well, it doesn't do me any good to pull up the email and the phone number or the age. If we look over here, we can take out the ID, we have name, we can take out email, phone number, age, but now we can add all these address fields, take out patient balance. So now, once I populate this, and this is a test database, so you don't see all this information here, but we can then now download and you can export that as a CSV, do a mail merge, and have it print labels for a direct mail campaign. So that's just one of many examples of how we now have control over what this output looks like. The other thing that we added here for some of these, we have the ability to look at sums and averages. So if you were curious about a list of patients that had a certain service and you wanted to know what the average age was of patients who receive a service of decompression, let's say, you can now do that. You select the age category, and then there's a drop down here that says, do you want an average, and then kind of how you want the decimals. You also have the ability, you can see down here, visit count or patient balance, where you can look at the sum. So if I wanted to query a list of people who have a patient balance that's more than 60 days past due and I want to know the total amount, we can now create that with the total list, and then it would give you a sum at the bottom. The last thing that we've added functionality-wise, and this was just phase one, we added the ability to add a couple of more bulk actions. So in the past, you were able to kind of inactivate some of these items. Well, now you can not only inactivate, but you can reactivate. So if I were to run a query of patients that were inactive, you have the ability to select all. When you use this button, it's just going to select the ones on this particular page. If you have multiple pages, because there's a lot, then you'll use this button here and it's going to select, let's say, all 300 patients. And then you can start to do these bulk actions. I can also select all and then deselect a couple of them. So stage one was really about adding a couple more filters to give you the ability to query off different variables and the ability to give you some flexibility in the fields that are shown. Phase two of this project, we are going to be adding more of these bulk actions. So the patient status is just one of them. Doing a bulk text message is another one. But what we envision here is looking at the ability to do bulk statements. You can bulk apply a tag, bulk remove a tag, and things like that. So stay tuned for some future development on this. But now, not only is this a ability to just query a list of patients, but now it's more like you can create workflows and dashboards, because the cool thing is when we create these searches, you can save the search, you can name it. Let's say this is active patients with a balance more than 60 days. So once I save that search, the other cool thing, if you were not aware, this was always an option here, is that now you can pin it to simple reporting. So when I do that, now when I come under reporting and I look at simple reporting, you can see this is a saved dashboard that I created that is going to be live, and I'll continue to update real time. So this, what initially started as just a means to query different patients, is now progressing into a little more advanced feature that allows you to create dashboards that you will be able to do more and more bulk actions around. All right, these next updates will only apply to those that are in the beta test for the ERA auto allocation of EOBs coming back to be posted. So there was 3 improvements that were made. The first one is if you were to download this file, only those that are using Office Ally would have it download in a TXT file where you can actually pull it up and view it kind of in plain text, so it makes sense. If you were using TriZetto or Availity, would download, it would maintain this 835 file. That's the electronic version, and it was really impossible for you to be able to see it. So a built-in viewer was made. It'll have both the .835 extension on the file and then a .txt extension. So you'll be able to use that and see that. So that's very helpful for those that were using TriZetto or Availity. The next thing, which these are a little harder to show you in the new version because it's hard to reproduce these with the ERA, but I can at least talk through it. So the first one was that the downloadable file. The second was if there was an ERA that came in that actually had multiple checks. So let's say there was actually 5 checks on one ERA file. CareHD treats each one of those checks as their own individual EOB with their own check number, and it posts kind of individually. However, when you're using the ERA, in the past, if 4 out of 5 of those, everything matched up fine and it was ready to auto allocate, but on the 5th one, there was a mismatch somewhere, it would place all 5 of them down here in the section saying that it needs attention. So now if 4 out of 5 of them, everything syncs properly, they'll all get broken up and 4 of them will come up here so that they can automatically be reviewed and posted. And then the one that had the mismatch will be down here. So that just allows you to post those quicker when there are no issues for some of the checks that are all included in one ERA. Then the final one, all right, we can see here. So in the past, this disallowed amount was never editable. So you could change the allowed amount and it would auto-calculate the disallowed amount. However, in some ERAs that come back, if you have to manually post something, sometimes on the EOB that you get, they only show you the disallowed amount. So it kind of forces you to do math every single time. So now in the new update, you can plug in the disallowed amount and it'll auto-calculate the allowed amount, or you can plug in the allowed amount and it'll auto-calculate the disallowed amount. So this is another time saver in those scenarios if you do have to manually post an EOB. All right, under green sheets here, for those that are billing insurance, you can know that we have the 2 tabs here. First one would be scrubbing the claims prior to going out. And then we have the ones that if you were to process an EOB and there was some sort of denial and there was a no payment and we put a reason in there, it would pop up here. So in the past, the button here previously said review and rebill. But the reality is you can't rebill from this message. So ideally, like having two separate buttons of, yes, I reviewed it and I want to dismiss it because it was just telling me that they've met their max benefit. So there's nothing really I need to do, but it was more of like a notification. And then the second option would be actually to rebill it. But you can't rebill something. Typically, you have to make a change to it anyway. So rebilling from this screen doesn't make as much sense because we need to go into the ledger and be able to make the changes that we need to make in order to send it back out. So what we've done was we redirected this link here to go directly to the transaction tab before it went to one of these other tabs. So now you can directly go into the transaction tab, make the change that you need, and you can put it back in, set it to rebill from here. And then when you come back here, you would just dismiss it because you've taken the action. This is kind of, think of this like in simple reporting on that health check. This shows up as a dashboard of the items that need your attention. Or if it's just an FYI, you read it. Yes, they have max benefit, got it, and then you can dismiss it. All right, so one of the updates that's part of this release is if we're in the transaction mode here and we add a new charge, let's say we add an adjustment CPT code, hit submit. And you can see here there's this new option. It looks like a little sticky note here where you can add a note to a specific line item, a specific date of service. Now, as soon as I hit submit there, you can see it now shows that there's a number 1 next to it, so we can see that a note was added. Another update that was added is under cases. If we are to add, let's say, an insurance case, and then under insurance coverage, when I add new insurance coverage here, let's say we add the payer, an ID number, group identifier. One of the new things that was just added is here where it says billing provider other ID. So this is box 33B on the HCFA form. This is a requirement in the state of Hawaii, and this was just recently requested in order to make sure that those claims could go out. So box 33B is now fully supported. And another item that's part of this release is previously, if we are under the ledger, but specifically the insurance history tab, when you clicked on this under date billed or date paid, if there was multiple, and I don't have a better example for you here, but let's say there was multiple line items here because it originally was denied. So something was declined, and then let's say the primary paid, and then it went to secondary. So if there was multiple line items here, all you could see is one line item, and there was this really tiny little scroll bar here. So now it supports, I believe it's up to about 15 line items. So it still has an option to scroll if you need to, but it at least shows the top however many transactions and just makes it a little easier to view. And that's going to be true both in bill history and date paid.